It's Byker Grove legends only in this special episode of Back to Byker because today I'm joined by the Dobsons, Lesley St. John and Tony Hodge, who of course played Kath Dobson and Alan Dobson in Byker Grove. Welcome to Back to Byker, both of you.
Oh, thank
Welcome,
you. Thank
hello.
you.
Lovely to see you both. Lesley, it's been over 30 years since you both left the show, but you still
All
keep
right,
in
all
touch.
right. Don't remind.
I'm sorry, but you two have kept in touch, haven't you?
Oh yes, we have. We're like the terrible twins. We sort of knew of each other before, but we didn't actually meet until we did this. And I don't know. Do you know? Just sometimes you gel with somebody.
Hmm.
We just hit it off, and yes, we've stayed friends ever since. We've worked together since, but we've met each other socially and had coffees and things. And he's just one of my best friends. I've got to be honest, I love him to bits. I
Oh,
call him worse than love, but I love him to
Yes,
bits.
oh.
like
Is
a real married couple.
That's lovely that you've stayed in touch all this time. That's really nice. Tony, tell me
Yeah,
before we dive into Biker, tell me about how you first started acting.
it's acting's a weird thing because, in fact, I was a drummer and for a long time,
Mhm.
and Equity came round asking for people to join them, and so did Musicians Union.
Mhm.
I was a bit old at the time. I was 30 odd, and I thought I wasn't going to be a rock and roll drummer forever, so I joined Equity. I got quite a few walk-on parts, and then in March of 1990, I got the offer of two jobs, one with Jimmy Neal for Spender,
Mhm.
and then one for a big children's program that was going to span multi episodes. As it happened, the Jimmy Neal one, I knew Jimmy and I got the job without too much of an interview. But the Byker Grove one was massive. There was many people for the job. It went down to six, then down to two. And on the last one, it was really quite a hard one, actually with Matthew himself.
Mhm.
And I came home in the car speaking to Dave Holly on the car saying this and that and the other. Then I rang Jane saying if only you'd helped me, I would have got the job. And then when I put the phone down, Dave Holly rang and said, actually, they want you back to talk to you about the part in Byker Grove.
Right.
So acting wasn't me.
What about you, Leslie? How did you get the part on Biker?
The part and bike, well, I'd always wanted to be an actress. My parents were both singers, and I was on the stage from the age of 5 doing shows. I did ballet and things like that. So I did panto every year and stuff like that. And then when I was 17, I wanted to do it seriously.
Mhm.
So I joined Equity, which wasn't as easy as I thought. You had to have 40 weeks work on the stage. And I thought, how am I going to do that? So I could sing a little bit. So I joined a band as a backing singer. Got me 40 weeks work. Then you have to be nominated, and then seconded. Then as soon as I got my Equity card, I was away.
Yeah.
And in those days, I mean, I'm going right back to the 70s. Um, and, I was just a teenager. And I think probably my first job was about 17, but there was loads of like beer commercials and I did a lot of those. And I wish I could find them now. I'd love to see them. And then I got small parts, maybe one line or something like that. But things in the Northeast. There was something about drugs, Operation Julie, which goes right back in the day, which is quite a well-known film now. But all, tiny little parts. And then I got the audition for Our Design Pet, which was really the one that changed my life. And
Mhm.
a bit like Tony in a way. I had an interview up here. I think it was the Station Hotel, and I went in, and there was, the direct. Well, I didn't know who they were. There was the casting director, the director, the producer. I wasn't really sure who was who. And I don't think I had to read anything. I think I just chatted and that was it, didn't think much of it. And then I got a phone call to say, could you come to London? And this was like, oh, this is really big. This is big. So I went to London. And when I got there was just this room full of girls. And they were all chatting away. I think predominantly 99% of them lived in London. And I was just thinking, no, here's me, this little girl from Newcastle. And went in, it was like a boardroom. There was this massive table. Um, people all around this table, and I had to read opposite Gary Holton, who played Wayne, who unfortunately is no longer with us. And I did the same thing. I came out and I was upset all the way home on the train. Oh, I should have done this, and I should have said that, and I shouldn't have looked here, and I shouldn't have looked down at my papers, and I just came home and told everybody I hadn't got the part. And then a week later, I got a phone call from Central Television saying, we'd love you to play Vicky. And so then I had to go around and tell everybody I did have the part. And they said, well, how come when you didn't have the part? And I said, well, I just assumed. So although I'd actually been acting a good 10 years then, that was really the one, you know, where I did the whole series and we filmed in Spain and things like that. So, so really, I think it was always in my blood, but my parents letting me do what I wanted to do and letting me do shows from being 5. It was just, I think if you've got it in there, you've always got it in there. And even if it gives you up, in your heart of hearts, you never give it up. You know, once an actor, always an actor. I think it's the same with singers. And, you know, if it's something that you love, whether you get the work or not, it's always in your heart that you want to do it. So yeah, so that was how I got into it.
And what was the time between finishing Auf Wiedersehen Pet and then starting on Byker?
I think I started doing commercials and things after Auf Wiedersehen Pet in about 87. And plum roast, chopped pork, and the wonderful liqueur. Anyway, they were quite lucrative for Shell petrol. So I was keeping ticking over, doing all these. And then I was asked to do Panto at the Tiny Theatre, which I think was 89. And so I did Aladdin there. And that was where I met Dee and Dee and well, just been talking about it. Kathy, Dee and Kathy. They were my dressers. And it was just after that Panto, so it must have been around about January or something. I got an audition for Byker Grove. And I knew that Kathy and Dee were there. So I wasn't as nervous because I thought, you know, if you know somebody somewhere, you know, you sort of think, oh, well, it's not all scary. Because when something's already established, it was like when I went for Auf Wiedersehen, I had bumped into Tim Healy and introduced myself and said, oh, I've just had an audition with your lot, blah, blah, blah. So again, I thought, oh, if I see Dee or Kathy, I'll go, oh, I'm here. However, I didn't see them. I just saw Matthew, and we had a chat, and then I had to do like an improvisation with one of the guys. Can't remember who it was now. And then that was it. I got a phone call, I think, the next day or so. So that would have been 90 or 91, somewhere around there anyway. Early 90s, I started on Byker Grove, and I think I was there 5 years or 5 series. You'll have to ask Tony because he's an encyclopedia of everything. I've got menopause memory. Everything just goes in and it's gone. I don't remember.
Tony, going back to when you first started and the show hadn't even been on screen yet, it must have been really exciting, was it? Did you have a feeling that the show was going to be a hit?
It's a strange thing because many years before I'd been a chef, and in that I'd gone through various things, exams and things at Bathlean College, and I'd met this guy who was a real live wire. He was unbelievable. He did terrible things like dropping big trays of buns on the floor, but on purpose. And I got the job, as I say, from Dave on the telephone. And then I had a little shop in Seaton Delaval, and I got a call, a personal visit in the shop by a young man and his son. and this young man was Billy Fane. And Billy Fane was the guy I'd worked all those years ago as a baker with a different name, of course. And he said, you're in Byker Grove, with us, it's this and it's that. And he started to tell us. And then he got me a tape of the first six episodes that went out. So, of course, I watched all of that before I actually went on live.
Mm-hmm.
But it was quite a strange thing because the first scenes I did were in a football pitch, cheering everybody along. So it was quite easy. But once you start working inside and they're talking about blocking this and two shot this and long shot that, everything was learning on the hoof, if you like. So that was quite strange. And I do remember quite clearly that Matthew got me aside not long after we'd started filming. And he said, later on the series, we've got you a wife. Which is quite an interesting thing to have, as I already had one. But never mind. And he said, she was the girl in the bikini on Auf Wiedersehen, Pet.
Oh.
From that second on, I thought, good God, my life is going on. I'd already met Jill, of course, and I'd met Debbie, my middle daughter, because both of them were involved with this scene at the football pitch.
Mm-hmm.
But it was a little while on when I first met Lesley, and I believe, Lesley, correct us if I'm wrong, but it was a kitchen scene we did. And Lesley was telling the girls off because they were supposed to be getting ready for school. And I was reading a paper. And as we mentioned, something you didn't know about taking walls down and things like that in Byker Grove. What they did was the scenes where Jill and the girls came in and Lesley was shouting at them, get their breakfast and everything ready. I was sitting on a chair with a paper, but the paper was literally here, right up against my face. But when it'd been a long shot, it looked like I was reading the paper.
Yeah.
But of course, when they did then the shots on Lesley and the girls, they had to come from me behind the paper. And that was when the wall came down.
Right.
So that actual picture got put in the Chronicle. It was in the Chronicle saying that even the Chronicle is read on Byker Grove. So it's the strangest thing when I'd only been a drummer for years and then you're doing all these weird and wonderful things. It was absolutely amazing. Absolutely amazing.
Yeah. Did you two feel an instant chemistry as soon as you started working together?
From my point of view, yes, without a doubt. And also the kids. I think we've talked about this before, Lesley. All of the girls, we felt like a family. And I still get birthday cards and birthday greetings and Christmas greetings from the kids now. Yeah. And one of them calls me Papa, and the other one calls me Telly Dad. So I don't get so many from Jill these days because she's high flying all over. But I usually do get a greeting, which is lovely all these years away. And of course, Lesley, we're much more in touch. So it is a family that carried on for what, 30 years? Good God.
Oh, that's lovely. I love that. Lesley, let's talk about the girls. Your daughters were a handful, weren't they?
They were. And funnily enough, Andrew, I remember that scene that Tony's talking about. Because the weird thing was that Jill Halfpenny was the oldest daughter. Mm-hmm. And in the show, she's called Nicola. And then the middle daughter was called Debbie, but her real name is Nicola. Mm-hmm. And then the youngest daughter was Gemma, but her real name is Nicola.
Yeah.
And then I have a real daughter who was about the same age, like somewhere sort of in the middle. And her name is Nicola. So I would be doing these scenes and I would be trying to get my daughter off to school because I had to get to the Mitre to do filming. So I'd be up the stairs. Nicola, are you coming down? Your breakfast's on the table. And then I would get into work and I would go, Nicola, are you coming down? Your breakfast's on the table. And I would be like, Nicola, Gemma, Debbie, Jill. And it was the most bizarre thing that I had 4 daughters and one way or another who were all called Nicola.
Yeah.
But I still do see Jill sometimes, but it's mainly sort of, like you were saying, at functions and things like that.
Yeah.
But my middle daughter, who is now Nicola Garraway, who is Debbie, I see her all the time. We go for coffee, and I see little Nicola, but she still looks about 12. She lives further down the country. She's married with her own kids and whatever, but I mean, she's still like little Gemma, isn't she?
Yeah.
She is.
And we see her, we get invited to the weddings, and we always, we've got loads of photographs of the Dobsons through the years, through the decades.
Mhm.
And there's Tony and I, and then there'll be Jill and Nicola, and we'll have the five of us. And you just see us getting bigger, or me getting fatter, Tony getting smaller, the girls getting bigger and more beautiful. But we've got loads of pictures, haven't we, Tony, of the Dobsons?
We have.
Yeah.
We've had some great times.
Through the decades, yeah.
And
we did say we were all going to meet for breakfast one day, but it's never happened. Like you say,
No.
Jill's very busy, and one lives here and one lives there, but we'll do it one day.
Yeah,
we will.
The girls had some great storylines, and it is a children's drama that focuses on the kids. But what I thought was great was that they gave you two this huge storyline about the affair, which was that really good fun to film?
I've had a fight. I had a fight scene,
I remember,
man.
yeah.
I had it's the maddest thing in the world. But yes, it was brilliant to film because, of course, it was anger, you know, and storming out and racing down and then go and try to hit this bloke and he give me one wallop and I was out. Which is
I just had to kiss somebody in Metro Centre car park.
I remember. Yeah.
She was away 24 hours.
It was terrible as well because, like, I had just met this guy, which, funnily enough, I worked with again last year. Or was it the year before? We did a play together, and I didn't recognise him at first. And he said, "Hello, Lesley, don't recognise us, do you?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm sorry." And you know, I just apologised. I said, "I've got a terrible memory." And he said, "The last time I saw you, I was snogging you in Metro Centre car park." And I went, "Oh yeah, now I know who you are." But that was the first time I'd met him. And, you know, luckily we were far enough away. So you could just do that, you know, where you can't really see anything.
Yeah.
Because it was like quite uncomfortable and he wasn't into women either. So
oh, really?
Well, he packed a wallet when he hit me. I've still got the scar.
Yeah, that was good. Yeah.
Tony, I know you're great for memories and stories. What stories stand out from your time on Byker?
There is so many, really. I tried to think of one or two. I could give you a couple if you've got time.
Yeah.
One that I found funny, bearing in mind I wasn't an actor at the time. A big storyline was growing the leeks for the Grove, and Jeff asked me down to give him a hand because I was a champion leek grower, which I'd never grown a leek in my life. They would have died. But what we did, we had this leek trench, and of course Winston was supposedly feeding them too much feed. So we had a lovely trench with 12 tiny baby leeks, and they were perfect. Did the shot, oh, these are coming on well, all this sort of thing, and we went away and had a cup of coffee. When we went away, the crew dug them all up and planted a whole set of 12 middle-growing leeks. So we came out the next day, apparently, a different shirt, and, oh, gosh, these are coming along too fast, Jeff. You know, I think there's a bit of a problem here. And then we were supposed to come back a few days later, but it was only an hour later, and there were all these huge leeks. All the other 12 had gone in the bin, and these huge leeks were growing for the next set. And I just thought, this is television. It's amazing. and the other one that, as I say, stood out, it was I had to play the drums, which of course is something I do as a normal thing. And I borrowed Cy Kings, you know, from the Hairy Bikers. Mm-hmm. Well, he's a drummer as well. And his drums were used on the back of a lorry. And I had to start playing the drums on the back of a lorry as it moved off to go down to the Great North Run race where the kids were going. Mm-hmm. But every time the lorry moved, the drums all fell over. And it was ending up with the kids rushing up and trying to hold the drums up every time the van moved. So I really felt they were two really funny ones that I thought of. But honestly, it was a hoot. I mean, they were very serious storylines, but in the back where we were chatting with each other, it was always such fun. And bear in mind, of course, the kids were, well, kids to us. I was 30, they were 12. Massive difference.
Yeah.
And they were naughty sometimes.
Were they?
Very.
Yeah, I remember doing a scene with the kids, and I think I think it might have been Jill Halfpenny was in the kitchen. I was in the kitchen a lot. Bearing in mind, Mrs. Dobson was very dowdy, didn't really wear makeup. I think wardrobe had me in navy blue, I think, every single scene for every episode for every year. But I think I had a dressing gown on or something, and I'm cooking breakfast, and Jill, Nicola is saying, oh, come on, Mum, you know, I don't eat bacon, or da, da, da. And when it came to my close-up, the two, Gemma and Debbie, this is too difficult. I'm just going to call them all Nicola. So the two Nicolas were sitting at the table, and when they were speaking, I'm doing me bit, you know, as you do. And then when it was reverses, and so the camera was on me, the kids would be going. And I would say, when, you know, Matthew would say cut, I would go, girls, that's really unprofessional, and you shouldn't be doing that. And they would go, it's really unprofessional. It's really unprofessional. And I would think, so I like that quite a lot. But one of the things I really remember were doing a scene, again, I think it was involving Jill or something, were down at, do you remember the garden festival site? And it was in Gateshead along the side of the river. And was it there about a year or something? Anyway, it had fairgrounds and they built houses and all sorts. And you'll have to ask Tony, he'll remember more. But I remember Tony and I were there, and I had Mrs. Dobson's shoes on, which didn't really fit me. They weren't stilettos, but they were little tight court shoes with a pointy toe. And we're trying to walk back to our dressing room, which I think was a container on the site that we were using to have a coffee. And I'm trying to walk back, and I'm like, these shoes are killing us. Tony goes, do you want to swap? And I was like, yeah, whatever. And he said, no, you can swap. You can have my lace-ups. And I said, what size are you? And he went, about 6.5. And I went, really? He says, what are you? I went, about 6.5. So we swapped shoes. I walked back, and he's got this little, you know, like, you probably don't remember. Was it Dame Edna or somebody used to wear these? Anyway, so that we had more fun offset.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Tony will tell you, we've laughed together, we've cried together, we've sat in like there wasn't really such a green room as such, but I remember us sitting, he was crying about this and I was crying about something else. And then other times we were just laughing. And then other times it was like the swap shoes, and it was just absolutely hysterical. And I think I've got more memories offset waiting to go on than I have actually been on.
And I believe someone was envious of your car, Lesley.
Oh my God. Do you know what? There was a book came out. It was like a Byker Grove annual or something like that. And I don't know if I read it in there. I'll have to look and see if I've got it. I don't know if I heard it or it was on an interview or I read it, but it was Dec, obviously Declan Donnelly, being a kid. And I used to turn up to the mate in my little white car. I had a little white sports car, and I can't remember if it was the little GTI I had or if I had a Toyota MR2, which was a dead little sporty thing. And he had said in this interview, well, you know, they were saying, what would you like to do when you're older or what? And he said, I'd love it if I could have a car like Lesley St. John. And I thought, oh my God, how times change. And I'm thinking, I would love it if I could be a penny behind Declan Donnelly.
Tony, you must be.
There you go. You wanted a car like mine.
Oh. Tony, you must be so proud of Ant and Dec, are you?
Oh, massively.
I mean, yourself included. Done so well.
Well, yes. Don't miss yourself out. But yes, you're talking about Ant and Dec. I mean, they are the epitome of Byker Grove. I mean, Jill's not far. Well, I mean, Jill I adore, and she does such marvelous dramas. But Ant and Dec really have gone the business. They'll be the names for decades to come, like Morecambe and Wise and people like that. And what always say, I mean, we've met them a few times. Well, Lesley and I have met them a few times since, and they're always so nice and so welcoming and so friendly. I remember on the boat, Lesley, there was a time that we're getting pictures, as you do, with them. And I was standing with Dec, and Lesley, you were taking the picture, but you were taking quite a long time to take the picture. And I was standing with
I
my
don't
arm
remember this.
with my arm round Dec. And honestly, it was just such a weird thing. We're both staring and then looking back at each other, then staring back to the other side. But that's how nice they were. I mean, they were already pretty famous then. This was the 12-year anniversary or something like that.
Yeah.
And Ant, I remember, would not push to the front of the queue of the people. Every time people were saying, come on, Ant, get to the front, he always stood in the queue for his beers. And I thought, that's two really down-to-earth, nice people. Not unlike nearly everybody in Byker Grove. You know, it's a funny thing. It found some rather nice people.
Yeah.
I remember there's something about that night, Tony, when we got off the boat. There's the I don't know what it is, but on the quayside there's like it's not a monument, it's sort of like a little curved towery thing. Anyway, I don't know what happened, but everybody started walking down the quayside, and I don't know why, but there was just me and Dec and my husband, Walter, who's not very well now, but at the time he was fine. And so Dec was sort of falling about, and I went, have you had a few too many? And he went, come on, let's have a photograph. He says, because you are taking mine, so now we'll have one together. So I was like, all right. So I had a photograph in this, which I've still got somewhere. And so again, like you say, like, you know, just like the word, just pally, you know. And then this hen party came along, and I think Ant was definitely more reserved. At the time, I think there was stuff going on with Ant that we didn't know about at the time, and he just wanted to, he didn't really like the limelight. And whereas Dec was just like, well, just give us another one, give us another one. And anyway, he got surrounded by this hen party, and I said, right, I'll get away then, see you later. They were off the hotel, we were going home. And the last I saw of him was about 10 girls from a hen party just surrounded him, and he just totally disappeared, and I never really found out what happened to him.
It was great.
He's one of these that, like, I know they've said since, when they've had arguments, that, you know, they have these like little girly fights and stuff. But to me, when I saw him drunk, he was the type that just smiled and sort of slid down the wall.
Absolutely.
But I mean, you know, that was just the one experience I had. I don't know them that well to say what they're like when they're out. Just the only things that I've experienced. But yeah.
Tony, going back to the Dobsons being on Byker, is there anything that you would have liked to have seen your character do in terms of storyline?
Possibly stay till the end.
Yeah.
Not really, because he was a different character to me completely. He was seen as a northern character who grew leeks for competitions. And in the eyes of the people from London, I was the epitome of what people were like in the Northeast, they thought. So that I would go to the club, I would try and win a prize, I would dig in the garden. So not really. Yes, you're right. But it would have been nice to have kept the family together to a better conclusion rather than Kath disappear. You know, we could have well moved away or anything like that, but to break up the family. But I know that a lot of these storylines were aimed at people who were suffering that at the time. And my daughter separated from her husband, so I've had 2 grandchildren who went through that at the time. So if I imagine there was a television program on at the time depicting that, you would suddenly feel you're not alone. It's not just you. So I do understand why they did it and how they did it. But, you know, to get punched like that, poor Alan, he didn't deserve it.
Lesley, have you been tempted to watch any of the streaming episodes now that they're online?
I haven't, no. I have been sent a photograph. Somebody had watched it. Somebody down in Yorkshire. He does something for Emmerdale, and he said I didn't realise when I first met him last year that he actually did some work. He was a runner on Byker, but I think it was after I'd left, so I never knew him then. But he said he's watching all the reruns. He's dead excited about it, and he sent me this photograph. And I've got this pink woolly jumper on, my hair's pulled back in a ponytail. I'm reading a letter and I'm crying, and I thought, oh my God, I look better now than I did then. But like I say, the character wasn't a glamorous person.
Yeah.
And I said, oh God, I said, what was this? And he said, oh, you're reading a letter where Nicola's saying that she's leaving, she's running away, you know, she's got a boyfriend, and apparently I'm devastated. And I was like, how do I watch it? What channel? And I thought, yeah, I would be interested. But at the moment, like I've said, my husband, he's not very well, and he's full-time carer, so it's not always as easy to do the things that I maybe want to do. But I'll definitely get round to watching them. If nothing else, I'll just watch my bits.
And I have to ask the question: would you both like to see the Dobsons return in a Byker reboot?
Well,
of course, we're going to say yes, aren't we?
Well, yeah. I mean, if it ever happened, I would think that there was an opening for a family who could have been the Dobsons, and we could certainly be grandparents now with daughters who have children. There is always openings, and most certainly if it was going to be anything like the 5-6 years that we had the last time round, I would jump at it as always. Nothing else. I would love to do it again. Yeah. It was just great to work with, and if we're able to work with some of the, like Lesley and 2 of the girls or 3 of the girls, as a family with their family, I would have thought that would have been a fantastic storyline. But you know, we aren't the people that write the words, and it would probably be unlikely. They would want to start new stories based more on what's happening today.
I think that, like, for argument's sake, say it came back and it was a children's program again, it's got to be all about the children. But obviously, like, you had the Grove and you had Jeff, and you know, you've got to have, you can't just have children. There's got to be the odd adult. And unfortunately, our youngest daughter, Gemma Nicola Hewitt, as she was then, was electrocuted. Yeah. So unless she came back in the shower, like Bobby Ewing in Dallas, I don't know how that would work. I think maybe Mr. and Mrs. Dobson got back together after the affair. So. But she's visiting him now in an old people's home. And she comes in with the kids and the grandkids, and I think the story could maybe be, you know, it could be the grandchildren now.
Maybe she's got a fella on the side, maybe.
Yeah. So I think, maybe all the grandkids now are like the kids, but, you know, every now and again, we used to have Grandma in the Dobsons. I think she was there for two series. I think Grandma was there. Yeah. And then we just, a bit like Coronation Street, sometimes people go upstairs and then you just don't hear about them ever again. They just never seem to come back downstairs. And I think that's what happened with Grandma. She just went upstairs one day and she never came back down. So we could definitely come in as Grandma and Granddad, I'm sure. Yeah. I'd
love to see that. Tony, Lesley, this has been lovely. I'm so glad we did it.
Me too.
I hope you've enjoyed it. We just went back to Byker.